couple months ago, I received the following comment. Let's face it, anyone who takes music production, mixing, or composing seriously are not using stock plugins in their DAW. Now, I'm going to start by saying that I totally disagree with this claim, and I'm going to explain to you why. So we're going to check at the difference between working with stock plugins versus third-party plugins. And I'm also going to share with you what it takes to be able to produce a pro mix with only stock plugins. What is going on, my friend? Chris Salim here from Mixdown Online. Now, I am very excited to announce you, like I did on my last video, that my new course, the Ultimate Cubase Mixing Masterclass, is going to be available 1 week from now. So to get more info or to jump on the waiting list, just click on the link down below. Now, if you are new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell, and also if you enjoyed this video, share and like. Now, to today's topic. Now, I'm going to start this one by saying that on my side, I do mix with stock plugins and also third-party plugins. So let's start by looking at stock plugins. Okay, so what are the advantages on working with stock plugins? First of all, they will give you everything you need to be able to produce a professional mix. So all the DAWs, whether you're working with Cubase, Studio One, Pro Tools, Ableton, all DAWs will have the main tools that you need to be able to produce a pro mix. We're talking about compression, EQ, saturation, delay, and reverb. So if you're able to manage these tools within your DAW, you are going to be able to go far with your mixes. And also working with stock plugins, let's face it, you're going to mix with a bit of limitation because you're not going to have as much selection as when you work with a bunch of third-party plugins. And mixing with some limitation is not a bad thing. It's actually going to help you to focus more on your skills, more than the tools that you work with. And this is something that I suggest everyone to start mixing with. Okay, so there's no use for someone new into the mixing field to start investing in a bunch of plugins. I would say mix with what you have in your own DAW and try to increase your skills and to develop your skills as a mixer by using those tools. And same for someone a bit more advanced. That can actually be a very good challenge. And actually did that myself, where I mixed a couple of songs by using only stock plugins. And you know, one of these songs is actually part of my mixing course, again, available next week, where I mixed a full song, full band production by working with only stock plugins out of Cubase. And this is actually a very good challenge for any experienced mixer as well. And if you're used to work with third-party plugins, you're going to see that, you know, to get the same type of vibe that you get with some of your regular plugins, you're going to need a bit more creativity, you know? So that is actually going to help your creativity mixing with only stock plugins to get the same kind of vibe and to the same kind of point that you will get with a third-party plugin. And this is something that I witnessed on my side by only working with stock plugins to mix my song. At some point, there was like some situations where I needed to be a bit more creative to achieve the same kind of result or close to the same result that I was getting with a specific third-party plugin. And I actually had a lot of fun doing so. Also, working with stock plugins can increase your workflow. Okay, there's some part of the mixing process that can actually speed up your workflow if you work with stock plugins. For example, you don't have a lot of selection to work with. So, you know, you're not going to be debating between like 10 compressors to decide which one you're going to use on the kick drum or on this guitar or this vocal. You're probably going to have access to maybe 1, 2, or 3 different compressors, and that's it. So, you know, you're going to waste way less time rather than just browsing throughout a list of different plugins. You know, so that is one of the advantage of working with stock plugins. And if you work with Cubase, in Cubase we have access to the channel strip, which is very cool because the channel strip is available on every single channels, where you have access to 3 compressors, a gate, an EQ, saturation, a de-esser. Like, you know, everything is there without having to insert a plugin. So it's very fast access to those processing straight from the channel strip in Cubase. And also, like I shared on my last video, working with stock plugins is going to be less hard on your computer CPU. And that's normal because stock plugins are part of your DAW, so they are super well integrated in your DAW. So that's why they are going to require way less CPU out of your computer. So very good if you are working with an older system. And of course, you're not going to have to spend an extra dime with stock plugins because they are included in your DAW, opposed to third-party plugins. And yes, we have access to some free plugins out there that are actually pretty good. But for the most part, all third-party plugins are paid plugins, so you're going to need to invest a lot of money. Some are very affordable and that are very good also, but a lot of them are going to be quite expensive, and some are actually very expensive. So at some point you really need to decide, is it worth it? Do I actually hear the difference between a stock plugin and a third-party plugin? And despite of all the advertisement I get on that specific plugin. Okay, now let's look at third-party plugins, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to ask me, okay, Chris, that's cool, stock plugins, I have everything that I need, but why do we have access to so many premium plugins? What I'm going to have to say about that, because I do work also with third-party plugins. And the reason why is, first, coloration. Some of the plugins I have access to will give me a different tone, a different kind of color, and that is mainly because a lot of them are going to emulate analog gear, like compressors, like the L1176 or the LA2A compressor. Those are all very nice classic compressors that were emulated by a lot of different companies. And that will give you access to that specific tone. And this is actually pretty cool, and I kind of like working with those tools. And that is the same for channel strips. You can have access to a Neve channel strip or an SSL channel strip, like a full console emulation, channel by channel even, which is quite crazy. But it is actually very cool. And for other plugins, it's going to be the look of the plugin, the visuals, the GUI, the way to work within the plugin itself. That will make your life easier. I'm just thinking of the FabFilter Pro Q3. This is one of my favorite EQ to work with. And to be honest with you, as far as the sound quality goes, if I compare it to the frequency EQ that I have in Cubase, it doesn't sound better. It's like both are transparent EQ. Okay, so one is not better as far as sound quality than the other, in my opinion, but the workflow within the plugin itself is superior in my own experience. So that's why I love to work with this plugin. And some other plugins are going to give you access to a combination of different tools blended together. For example, RBass from Waves, or again, the Waves MV2, or RVox, which are going to be a combination of, for example, the RVox of a gate blended with a compression that is mainly focused for vocals. You just pop on this plugin, you have a minimum of parameters to deal with, and you can get to a very decent and good sound in a short amount of time. And those plugins can be a bit harder to reproduce in a stock plugin situation, but not impossible, and this is where creativity comes in hand. Again, if I go back to one of the reasons why I think it's good to work with stock plugins at some point, it's to be able to develop your creativity. So doing that as an exercise also for advanced mixers is not a bad thing. It's going to just to help you focus more on your skills, to be more creative. And this is how mixing engineers used to work before all of those plugins came on the market. They used to be very creative with the tools that they already had, because they were mixing with limitation, especially when they were only mixing with gear, with analog gear and not plugins. So now third-party plugin companies, they build and they design plugins to make your life easier in some extent. And this is one of the other reasons why I am going to work with third-party plugins, if that plugin is going to make my life easier compared to a stock plugin. And the big question is a third-party plugin sound better than a stock plugin? Now that depends, some will sound way better than stock plugins and some won't. Okay, so that depends on what plugin you work with. It's not like a general thing, because stock plugins, they are high-quality plugins, especially today in 2020. It's not like it used to be 15 years ago. With today's technology and with today's DAWs we have access to, they gave us access to a bunch of high quality plugins. And this is exactly what I'm going to share with you on my next video, where I'm going to talk about my top favorite mixing Cubase plugins. So when we're talking about sound quality, again, it depends. And if there is some plugins that on paper sound better than stock plugins, a lot of people won't even notice the difference. The main difference, like I was saying earlier, is mainly for tone, especially with plugins that are emulating analog gear. So let me just take a few seconds and have you listen to a mix that I worked on with only stock plugins out in Cubase. And this song is part of my mixing course, where I show you how I mixed this song using only stock plugins. Okay, so you can see everything that I did as I go into the mixing process. So let's have a listen. So yeah, that is the single I released last spring. Some of you probably heard it already. And like I was saying, I only mixed this song with stock plugins out of Cubase, nothing else. All that to say that it is possible to produce a professional mix by only working with stock plugins. And the secret is very simple, is to focus on your skills more than the tools. Because the plugins are not going to mix for you. You are. So I believe that by improving your skills, you're going to be a better mixer. And again, you're going to be able to enjoy even more third-party plugins and your stock plugins that you already have within your DAW. So I'm going to finish with this. With skills, you're going to be able to produce any professional mix by working with only stock plugins. But without skills, you're not going to be able to produce a professional mix, even with third-party plugins. So there you go, my friends. This is my take on it. If you have any comments or questions, leave everything down below. And don't forget to share, to like if you enjoyed this video, and to subscribe to the channel if you are new here. Until next time, take care and see you.